James hates your take, and James doesn't even know what we're talking about.
Word.
James Ham or Jim Ham is.
Oh no, he comes through in Game 7. He's James.
Jimothy.
Yeah.
James Ham with us here, our insider from the Insiders. James, can you clarify this? I don't feel like it should be, but it became a social media thing yesterday. Is or is not Bobby Jackson joining Doug Christie's staff?
That's a good question. I think, the way that I had heard it, hey, it looked like Bobby Jackson's getting close, right? So we talked about it yesterday on the show, right at the 11 o'clock hour, that look, it sounds like Mike Woodson is almost a done deal and that Bobby Jackson is super close to getting done, or super close to returning. That's how I phrased it when we talked about it yesterday. And, then I poked around a little bit more yesterday afternoon. And the answer that I got was, hey, nothing is signed with any coach yet outside of Doug. Doug is still compiling his list. And so, yeah, I'm not sure where we are at this point. To be honest with you, just because it's not a done deal today doesn't mean it can't be a done deal this afternoon or tomorrow. But the fact that Jason Anderson's reporting that they haven't even had a conversation, I think is interesting.
So what the hell happened?
I don't want to speak for nobody, but Sean has done this a really long time. Yeah. I know if my sorry ass can pick up the phone and text Bobby Jackson, I feel like Sean could do the same thing. Sean didn't just pull this out of the atmosphere and tweet it. So I don't know. Maybe this is I don't know, James. I don't know. This is weird. It started on Twitter because I'm sorry. It started on Instagram because I think Leo Cowbell posted a graphic and Bobby responded to it like, "What the hell? Nobody told me."
He said, "What the hell?"
And we were like, "Wait, what? What is this?" And now I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, Sean doesn't usually mess his stuff up, and I heard the same thing that I, not as definitive as what Sean put out there, but we were talking about it before Sean tweeted. We had started talking about it on the show yesterday before. But again, I didn't say for sure 100% it's a done deal. Bobby Jackson's, welcome back to Sacramento. It was still hey, it's not done yet, but this is something that sounds like it's probably going to happen. I'm intrigued. Again, if Bobby wants to come back to Sacramento, I'm sure he does. I mean, to be honest with you, I believe a lot of his, I don't know that everyone that his family packed up and moved to Philadelphia for the last year. So it would not surprise me if he wanted to come back to Sacramento, especially to coach alongside Doug, who's a really, really close friend of his. But that's the problem right now. You got to be careful. I was able to confirm yesterday without any question that BJ Armstrong has joined the organization. And I was not able to confirm either Mike Woodson or Bobby Jackson when I was reaching out to sources within the walls yesterday.
And one of the things about Sean, what Sean said and what Leo said, which was Leo just kind of, he just was reporting what Sean reported, is the word will return. You know what I mean? And I think that's where Bobby may have, hold on, I don't know about that. He didn't go into detail, and obviously I don't know. He might have been, I didn't talk. There's people that have asked me about my interest. I'm interested. But done deal? No, I don't know nothing about I don't know nothing about a done deal. There's so many different things they got to do. They, as far as I knew, they still had to get permission, right? And maybe they have. That doesn't necessarily have to be reported. But they still got to go through steps to even be able to talk to Bobby Jackson, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the way it works is if you're interested in somebody, you have to, and they're under contract with another team, you have to call that team and have a conversation with the team and say, hey, is it okay if you have to seek permission. And if they say yes, you can have permission to speak to him. Then you go from there. But that doesn't mean like, look, Doug Christie and Bobby Jackson have been really, really good friends for, I don't know, 20 something years, close to 25 years. So, like, look, if they're having conversations, like basic conversations as just two dudes, that's different than, asking permission and all that stuff. Even if they were to have some sort of hypothetical conversation. And again, I don't know if that's happened. What you don't want to do is get caught tampering or anything else with somebody else's coach and run into that problem. But it just feels like whatever reason, like we all got a lot of news yesterday. We all got a lot of sources saying that it was close or that it was about to happen, and it hasn't happened yet. And it doesn't sound like it's as close as a lot of us have heard.
You mentioned the BJ Armstrong thing. What do you think about that? Obviously, someone who has seemingly pretty good ties, pretty close ties to Scott Perry.
Yeah, I mean, those guys have good ties, and that's what you want. You want someone who that Scott Perry that feels really comfortable with, right? He needs to build out his staff with someone like BJ, who not only has been, was a player, but then went into a front office and worked for Jerry Krause for a few years after he retired from the game, and then has been an agent since like 2006. So, like, BJ Armstrong has ties all around the league, and this is a big deal because, like, look, one of the problems I think the Kings had in the last regime, and even the regime before that with Vlade and those guys, is just the basic ties around the league to make easy phone calls, to touch base with people, to have the Bobby Jackson conversation before you have the Bobby Jackson conversation, right? Like, but with actual trades and players and everything else, there's always a way that you can have a generalized conversation with somebody that doesn't get leaked to the media, that doesn't end up, aggregated 5 million times that the Kings are closing in on Cam Johnson or whatever. There's a way that you can do that without, going through dangerous sort of obvious avenues. And when you start accumulating multiple guys like that, guys who, again, BJ Armstrong, as a player's agent and working for Wasserman, like, I mean, he has ties everywhere, right? And Scott Perry has ties everywhere. I feel like the last couple of years, the Kings had run out of some of these ties. And, Alvin Gentry has some of those ties, right? But maybe Wes Wilcox didn't have as many ties around the league as you would hope. Maybe Monty McNair, again, didn't have a bunch of ties around the league that made sense. So I think bringing in guys like this is a good thing. And I did get confirmed this morning that it does appear that Alvin Gentry will be back again and will remain.
Yeah, the damn air horn. Alvin,
yes, sir.
Alvin needs a lifetime deal with Sacramento. What's Alvin do? I don't know. I just want to see him courtside.
Cool cat. That's what he does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man.
I believe that's on his office.
Adds to the vibes.
Yep.
That's what he does, man. I'm with you, James. I think the BJ Armstrong thing, like, to get as many of those people in the building is a plus. And yesterday I talked about, or on Twitter at least, I talked about how, the NBA and just like life is about relationships and who you know a lot of the times. And that's a great thing to have in your building if you're the Sacramento Kings, something that we haven't seen, like you mentioned, in recent years. And a lot of people kind of short-sighted, or well, look at his client list, like he didn't represent anybody. That's not what it's about. It's about being able to be in those rooms, have those conversations, have those relationships. You talked about who he worked for. There's a Wasserman.
Wasserman Media Group.
Like, he can go, if everything left on good terms, he can go back to them and talk about potential free agent trades, whatever, or just inquire. And just having that knowledge, that type of lifeline in the building, I think is very, very important to go along with what you got with Scott Perry.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, the Kings just need to figure out a way to connect with themselves to the rest of the league in a positive way. And I'm not saying that Monty and Wes didn't do that. But again, I think I've told you guys this, and I mentioned it on the show earlier. Wes Wes said one time, like, a third of the league loves me, a third of the league I'm totally cool with, and a third of the league probably doesn't love me. And he's like, and that's kind of a good thing, because you don't want everybody loving you, because then you're, if you can't spot the sucker in the room, it's because you're the sucker, you know? So it is good that there are people in the league that, have
Wes
maybe had
Wilcox would tell himself some stuff like that.
well, I mean, but at the same time, I do get it. There is, you don't have to be liked by everybody in the league, because not every deal went the right way, and, like most teams, there's usually a winner and a loser to every trade. And you want to be on the winning side as many times as possible, but you also don't want to just get a reputation as a guy who always wins every trade, because you don't want to get involved if you think you're going to lose. And so, yeah, I don't know. To be honest, I think this is a good start, and I don't think they're done. We still don't know if, like, Phil Jabbar is back. Phil Jabbar is back. Paul Johnson, we've heard, is back. But Phil Jabbar is like their head of scouting, and I think he's a VP of player personnel or something. And that's a big deal. I mean, you need a scouting director, somebody who, again, has sources all over the league and can get you information on potential draft picks and stuff that maybe you don't have. And again, with a guy like BJ Armstrong, like, when you're going through the draft process, and we talked a little bit about this, I think, on Monday, right? When you go through the draft process, the Kings have reopened the doors. So they had 6 prospects come through on Monday. For whatever reason, Wes Wilcox and Monty McNair and Wes Wilcox made the decision to close their doors to prospect workouts. So we didn't go in and see who's coming through Sacramento, interview players and all that stuff. And I think it really hurt the Kings. Like, it's just like free publicity, right? Like, the whole summer, like, why would you close your doors when, just because it's May, that doesn't mean you're not still trying to sell season tickets, right? You want your name in the press as much as possible. And when you have 6 prospects come through, even if nobody knows who any of them are, that still doesn't, I mean, KCRA, Fox, CBS 13, Channel 10, they show up with cameras every time. Like, it goes on the 6 o'clock and the 11 o'clock news and keeps your product in front of everything. You're out there, everyone is seeing it. And to close that off to media was, like, really, really short-sighted. And the reason why I bring this up with BJ Armstrong is that while BJ didn't have a bunch of top tier clients, he does have a lot of these other types of clients, and he knows a lot of the guys that had clients like him. So if you want to start getting in all these prospect workouts and saying, hey, like, can we get your guys to come through Sacramento to compete? We got an early 2nd round pick. A lot of them will go, no, we're okay. Because, what's the value of it? They're going to go to Sacramento and no one's going to know they even came in the door. Like, part of this is getting your client's name out there. It's why we hear, coaches attached to the Kings job right now, because somebody wants that client name out there. And so I think it is a good thing to have a guy like BJ, and a guy, again, this is Scott Perry. He did an exhaustive search the last time the Kings had, when he was here in 2017, and they had so many prospect workouts, it was crazy. And they got almost everyone into Sacramento. It was, they did a really good job of touching base with everybody and getting players in, whether it was just for a dinner meeting or whether it was for, full workout, a solo workout, or a 6-man workout, whatever. They did a really, really good job of like putting their like feelers out and bringing people in the building. And it's not always about, like, whether you're going to draft somebody that year. It's about 2 or 3 years from now, when that player might be a free agent or might come up in trade conversations. And you're like, man, we had a really, really good meeting with player X. And, he was great. We went out to dinner. We just got a good feel for him. And if he's available in this deal, I would prefer him over this other guy that we don't really know. And so that's why these things matter, to have as many prospect workouts, but also to open your doors so they become part of the draft process in Sacramento.
And that's probably true for the agents too, right? Not just meeting with different players, but like you're meeting with those representatives as well. And it's not just that player that you're talking about. You can talk about their roster of players.
Well, that, and I mean, a lot of it is just doing favors for people, and like, hey, we'll get your guy in here. We're probably not going to draft him, but we'll get him in here. And people are like, why would that help you? It's like, well, like, what if that agent has another player who, whether it's a top tier player or it's even a guy that is an undrafted free agent, like, you want to be really high on the list. If you call and say, hey, that Keon Ellis kid, we had a good workout. We really like him. He didn't get drafted tonight, but what do you guys think about a 2-way contract? And we'll lock him up.
Mm-hmm.
That matters when you already have the relationship with the player, when you already have the relationship with the agent. Like, it's not just as cut and dry as whether you had players through or you didn't have players through. Like, it's very complicated. And I think that the Kings are doing a better job of, getting their brand name out there in a different way this season.
Man, I really don't want to kick Monty's back in on the way out, but
he's already out. It's okay. He's not on the way. He's already gone.
But it's just little things like this, little ways of understanding how to move around this league, maneuver around this league are glaring. The differences are glaring. And not just Monty and West. To be honest with you, now thinking about it, Vlade Divac as well, first-time guy. Like you mentioned, like, it's just the little intricate game, so to speak, that you got to play around this league that I think James is frozen. That we didn't see with those guys that we see.
No, James is absolutely frozen. James is 100% frozen. 321. If anyone had 321, James is thawed out. He's never amused by this. We always are. 10 times out of 10.
Every time, man. Especially when I realized the facial expression didn't change. I was like, oh, he's frozen.
Mm-hmm. James is listening really intently to what Kenny is saying right now.
But James, just for a synopsis of what I was saying, it's just with Monty and West, with Vlade Divac, it's night and day understanding the little intricacies of maneuvering around this NBA between what we saw with those first-time guys that maybe didn't have the same relationships around the league and experience around the league compared to a guy like Scott Perry, who's done this as a head guy or an assistant guy. It feels like a handful of times now, or a handful of different franchises at this point. Like, he knows how to maneuver.
Yeah, I mean, I think Monty and West should have been, like, they had players come through, right? We just, like, to hide it just never made any sense. So, like, Devin Carter came into Sacramento and worked out, like, last off season. Like, they had a conversation with him, they had met him, they had all that stuff. So, but it's the sheer volume of players that I think is something that actually matters. We talked about it. Again, I think it's a 2019 NBA draft. The Kings had, like, I think it was 99 prospects come through. And then they had Kyle Guy come through three times. So it ended up being like, I don't know, 14 or 15 workouts for all of us to go to. And was it a lot? Yeah, it's a lot, but that's part of the job, is to, like, when they do these things, is to go out there and, again, this last workout on Monday, like, there's a kid with Sacramento ties, like a kid who grew up here. Like, that's a good story for, again, the 11 o'clock news. Is it a story that, writers are writing around town? No, but it's a good story for a 30-second news hit. And those things actually matter when you're trying to sell tickets, when you're trying to build something. So I think this is a good thing. We'll have to see, if they continue to do it this way. But I just think that, like, year one of Monty, it was like an open door. Year two, it was like half the prospect workouts we weren't invited to. Year three, it was like, screw those guys. We're not going to do this anymore with the media. And it's like, oh, that was it. We got during the pandemic, we got all the prospect workouts via Zoom, or at least a good portion of them, which was really, really awkward and odd. But those things matter. And so hopefully we're just seeing a new era of Kings basketball that's different. It's not as restrictive, because that doesn't help anybody. It really doesn't.
I want to ask James one more thing about that, because he mentioned something that did Monty, because he was a first-time guy, did he never, how do I put this? Did he never adjust to not being in the COVID era anymore? Because when he came in, it was the COVID era where it was Zoom and you're not talking to these reporters anymore. And then once we got out of that, was it like, well, this is how I came in the game doing it. We just keep doing it this way. I feel like that's not giving him credit for being in the league as long as he had been before. Like, he had no idea how these things went down, but you kind of mentioned it. He never left the COVID era with how he went about things. Was that kind of how you saw some of the ways he moved with the information that was given out?
That's a good point. First of all, Monty is a lot more comfortable in like that setting. He's a lot more comfortable not stepping up and standing in front of cameras and answering questions. Even it's the same question 8 times in a different way. He doesn't particularly, that wasn't his forte, right? And the fact that it probably was Wes's forte to have those conversations, but the power structure within was that Monty was here and Wes was right below him on the pecking order. I think it probably lent itself to some awkwardness, and I thought Monty got better at times, and was like more honest and upfront and felt more comfortable in front of the camera. But it could be something as simple as, like, they didn't do it because they just didn't feel the value of it. They didn't understand the value of it. They didn't appreciate the value of it. And, maybe, like, again, maybe I'm just crazy and off base, but like, it sure did feel like, free advertising for your franchise. And for them to not like even attempt to do it, to try, to me always just felt weird. And not only that, but to at least at one point it was like, hey, we had these 6 guys come through camp, if you want to put that out there. And then they would go to a different reporter and say, hey, we had a couple of guys through this week. This is who came through. It's like, that's not good enough. Like, let us talk to those players. Let us be in the building. Let us sit here and roll cameras and everything else, because that's part of the process. And so, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it is like the COVID era. They never recovered, because nothing is the same since the COVID era. Like, you go in the locker room now and pregame, and there's maybe 1 or 2 players. And a lot of times it's the same players. So I know, like, Jake LaRavia would come in, like Markelle Fultz would sit in the locker room. But a lot of guys don't. And that's just not the way it used to be. Used to be, you walk into a locker room in pregame and there's 5 or 6 players, and they're all, hanging out and just, like, chatting with each other. And that's just not the way it is anymore. And the same thing for postgame. The whole bring 2 players to the podium and then a coach to the podium, and that 30-minute window gives every single player that isn't going to the podium an opportunity to leave. That's not the way it was either. It used to be like a really quick coaching interview, and then we'd all race to the locker room and sit there and interview whoever we could in the locker room. And also, just so people understand, it changes the dynamic. If there's 8 guys in a locker room and a scrum goes over and talks to one of those guys, if you're someone who's writing a different story and doesn't care about that and doesn't care about the game coverage that night, you can go and hit 2 or 3 other players while that scrum's happening and get one-on-one information that you can then craft a story. All of that's gone. So, and a lot of it is COVID, but a lot of it is just like not
changed.
I mean, it's changed. Yep.
All right, we'll come back. There's a lot more we want to talk with James Ham about. It's Steeler with KC, brought to you by Sky River, including, I want to get James Ham's thoughts on that buzzer beater last night. Specifically, not just the buzzer beater, but what that team is doing and what they've done since that trade with Tyrese Haliburton. It's Steeler with KC, brought to you by Sky River Casino and Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320. Everything good? Everything good? Okay.
Sorry if I went long there.
No, not at all. There was just stuff going on in the control room. I want to make sure everything's good.
The A's bullpen has let them down again. Now they're down 6-5 in the ninth inning after being up 5-4 in the eighth. Not great. Yeah, Johnny G, Nick Kurtz is a gigantic human. He's a legit 6'6", 240 something? Maybe bigger. Reminds me of Adam Dunn, like just body style.
When he's at the plate, it reminds me of Brandon Belt. That's not always the thing.
Well, Kurtz hasn't hit a home run yet. Once he hits one home run, like the floodgates will open. That dude is just a pure power hitter, like Matt Olson.
I'm a believer. He's the truth. He's definitely the truth.
Yeah, I think he's going to be really good. Yeah. I totally agree with this. Yeah. That dude is just like pure power. Two away. Or they don't get this run across. That'll be their third loss this week in the final 2 innings. Bullpen letting it up late. Yeah, Tony, I think Kurtz will be good too. Like he already does a really good job of sort of managing the strike zone. Oh, look at that. The Kings officially announced the BJ Armstrong edition while we're here.
There we go. It's official.
Yeah.
You got that email, James?
Yep.
Coming back, James. Well, right on cue, the Sacramento Kings make it official as they sent out their media release that they have named BJ Armstrong as the assistant general manager. From general manager Scott Perry, he says BJ has an elite understanding of the game, and his basketball IQ, front office insight, and championship experience will be invaluable as we build towards the future. He's been a trusted advisor to me and many others in the basketball world for years, and I'm confident his perspective and leadership will make a significant impact on our organization. Again, that's from Sacramento Kings general manager Scott Perry, as the hiring of assistant general manager BJ Armstrong is official. Little moves being made here and there, little hires. We don't have any confirmation on anything involving Doug Christie or any other members of the coaching staff. As a matter of fact, James, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't even think we got anything on the hiring of Mike Woodson yet, did we?
No. Mike Woodson is, again, has not officially been hired.
Okay.
Yeah. No. He's there's a good possibility that Mike Woodson is joining the staff, but he has not officially been hired. And just to clear up who's here and who's not, Leandro Barbosa is still part of the staff, from what I know. Dip is still part of the coaching staff. Jimmy Alapik is still here in Sacramento, which is a great thing.
Oh, man. Mm-hmm.
Super good dude. So I heard that today. But the rest of the coaching staff, for the most part, are gone. So again, Jim Moran left and joined Luke Laux at Florida State. Ricky Foyce, Jawad Williams, Jay Triano, Robbie Lemons, all those guys are gone.
Okay.
We talked about the BJ Armstrong, him coming in. Now it's official. Mike Woodson, still rumors. Bobby Jackson. Ask you, James, do you like the way, potentially, because we don't know, nothing's official just yet, but potentially the way the staff is being put together, the type of guys that potentially are going to be on this Doug Christie coaching staff?
I need to see it in its entirety. Again, I think a guy like Mike Woodson is, as much as he is an assistant coach, he's also like a mentor type that's going to step in. We're talking about a guy who's 67 years old, who has had a ton of head coaching experience, a bunch of assistant coaching experience, who hasn't been in the league since I think the 2020-21 season, when he was with the Knicks. He spent the last few years as the Indiana Hoosiers head coach. But I need to see the other pieces, because, if you're going to have Leandro Barbosa and you're going to have Bobby Jackson, I do kind of need an offensive specialist in here. I need a defensive specialist in here. And that's how you kind of build out your staff. So you only have so many front of the bench, so many front of the bench players, coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And, if we look at Woodson, Bobby Jackson, and Leandro Barbosa as all front of the bench type guys, that only leaves one more spot. And again, that's usually a defensive coordinator, an offensive coordinator type coach. And we haven't got to that point yet where we kind of have defined roles and who these people are.
What'd you think about what Tyrese did last night for the Pacers, as we shift gears to the future of the Sacramento Kings and look back at a past one? Tyrese, with a couple of big plays there in the final seconds, misses the free throw, gets the offensive rebound, takes a step back, and winds up hitting the game-winning three. His second, called it game-winning scores in the last, week and some change here with their victory over the Bucks, and then now over a Game 2 victory over the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah, I mean, look, we knew Tyrese Haliburton was a big-time shot taker and big-time shot maker in his first season in Sacramento. You saw it right away. No fear, was always ready, never shied away from the big shot. So, I mean, for me, this is just the next progression in his development, and it's really good to see that he's continuing to grow and become that player that everyone thinks he can be. I also, he's just so unique. And Kyle and I were talking earlier, you can look around the league and there's so many player comps and stuff that we usually can come up with for specific players. Like Amin Thompson, really looks like Jimmy Butler, or or Jalen Green. Like, that's an easy comp. With Tyrese, it's so different because he's a very unique individual. And, the way he plays, the stats, they really look like he is the guy who's going to take over the mantle for Chris Paul, who really took over the mantle from a guy like Steve Nash as like that best pure point guard in the NBA. And it's impressive to see him grow and become this player, because it's really not who he was in college. I mean, he's always been a great passer. He was a point guard in high school and all that stuff. But we're talking about a guy who, averaged like 18, 5, and 5 at the college level. We didn't see this whole 10, 11, 12 assists per game guy. And he's just one of the most dynamic, like, pure point guards that we've seen in the league. And not only that, but he's got the ability to hit a huge shot when he needs to. And so really, really impressive to watch him grow. And I'm super happy for him. He's a good dude. Um, do you wish he's still in Sacramento? Of course you do. But would you take back the Domantas Sabonis trade? I'm sure some people would say yes now, but if you compare today versus then, I don't know. The Kings have done plenty of good with Domas, and we're seeing a team on the rise, and the Pacers, who have done what you have to do if you're gonna build a team, and that's why I think the Kings have really let Domas down.
We joke about it, often, but I understand the terminology. He really is an organizer and an elite organizer. When you talk about Tyrese Haliburton, I look at him as a guy that makes sure everybody's eating, make sure everybody is comfortable, knowing that the basketball is going to come their way at some point, and he has the opportunity and the ability to, when he needs to, knock down a shot or get to the basket, keep guys honest. He is an elite point guard and a true point guard in every sense of the word. And we're seeing him on this playoff stage take full advantage of every opportunity given it to him, man. And like you said, it's great to see for Tyrese, because he a hell of a ball player, good young man, and I like to see his ascension in this league.
Yeah, I think you should be pulling for players to become great players and to take the next step. And we this is why the Kings have missed so much by just not making the playoffs. Like, you take such a huge step as a player by getting that experience and learning what the game looks like at the next level, playing meaningful basketball games in May and potentially June. You just do. And so we're getting to see some of these players that whether it's Ty or whether it's Amin Thompson or whether it's Cade Cunningham, like there's a whole group of them that we're seeing take these monstrous steps as they're in their progression. And it's because playoff basketball just has a different intensity. And that's where, not only do you miss out by not going to the playoffs and, not making extra money and all that stuff, not having an opportunity to play for a championship, but also that experience. And I think it just galvanizes players into who they're going to be and who they should be. It teaches them that there's another level to their game. And when you're a guy who perennially misses out on the playoffs, it's really tough to understand how that next step looks and feels. And that's another one of the downfalls to just, not making it here, being on the outside looking in.
Oh, but it's a familiar place for us, the outside looking in. I feel like Tyrese is really emerging this postseason. And you talked a minute ago about all of the things that the Pacers have done right and the things that the Sacramento Kings have done wrong. And maybe that's one of the things, and that whether it's fair to Domas or not, that's one of the things where people will look sideways at this for a long time. It's not necessarily what Domas has done, because Domas has, in fact, made a couple of All-NBAs, but the fact that he hasn't had the success in the postseason or anything close to it, or even the appearances in the postseason that the Indiana Pacers have had, are always going to make this trade feel a certain way. And of course, the absence of De'Aaron Fox makes it significantly worse. But that's the position the Kings put themselves in, not Domantas Sabonis. A lot of times these trades become a reflection of the franchise and not necessarily the players involved. Tyrese, obviously a really good player. Domas still a really good player. Everything that the Pacers have done, Pacers went all in with Pascal Siakam. That was a move they decided they were willing to make. This is going to be the core of what we believe is a team that can win us a championship. That doesn't mean we won't try to add players, make other moves along the way. It just means our core, or core, if you will, to go back to an old school expression, is Tyrese Haliburton and Pascal Siakam. Mm-hmm. Kings were never able to establish that. We thought it would be Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox, and learned pretty quickly that wouldn't be the case. And when the Sacramento Kings did achieve some success, James, they didn't follow it up with anything that next season. They waited a little bit too long before starting to make some changes.
Yeah, I mean, that's always going to be the what if moment, right? And I know you gave up, like, when you made the Domas trade, you gave up like 4 years of, of age, as far as like, how long a player is going to play in the league type deal, right? You went from a 25-year-old, a 22-year-old to a 26-year-old, right? And you cashed in like the development years of Haliburton for what you thought would be like the instant years of Domantas Sabonis, and you got those, right. Domantas Sabonis has been excellent as a member of the Sacramento Kings. The problem is that if you don't do the other things that are required to make your team good and to continue to grow and continue to build out the roster, the support pieces that would have made so much sense for a guy to put alongside a guy like Domantas Sabonis, then you just squandered that time. And that's where I know a lot of people are going to be super, super upset that look how good Tyrese is. There's nothing that said that Domas couldn't have had the same success here in Sacramento, like in a different way, because we're talking about a center versus a point guard. But the fact that you stopped really putting the pieces around Domas after year one was just, like, irresponsible. Like, it's why the guys that were running the franchise are no longer running the franchise. If you can't continue to build off a winning season like that, then what are you doing? That's the point of it. You can't just sit on your hands for a couple of years and hope that you'll have internal growth that will make it all better. We do officially have that Mike Woodson has joined the Sacramento Kings coaching staff. I have just been able to confirm that.
There we go. All
right. Okay.
Yep.
Shout out Mike Woodson.
So we saw the Sean tweet, but I didn't know if that was anything different than we already knew. And for those who have been with us this entire hour, James said that the Sacramento Kings have not confirmed anything regarding additional coaching hires. Well, that now has changed. Mike Woodson is confirmed to be joining, and I believe the title is associate head coach on Doug Christie's staff.
Nice. Welcome to Sacramento, Mike Woodson. Welcome back to
James confirming news here on the show. I'm with it.
Yeah.
James, what you think about that other series, the Warriors series, now without Steph? I know you're familiar with some of these injuries, and they say at least a week. Myself and Damian, we've said we'd be lucky to see him in 10 days, and that's just being out on the court, let alone being able to be Steph Curry. Do you think we'll see him at all the rest of the series?
I think it's interesting. Steph has never had major injury issues like this. Like, he's had the ankle injuries. He's had that weird knee injury that he had that was like one of the rarest injuries that we've seen, but he's never had muscle pulls and muscle tears. Or strains. We're going to have to see how quickly he recovers. The fact that he's never had like a major hamstring injury, even though he's 37 years old, that actually bodes really well for him. He's not going to have a bunch of scar tissue. He's not going to have a bunch of other issues that he needs to deal with when it comes to rehab. It's just a matter of how quickly does his body recover. And to be honest with you, that dude puts in the work. He's always been a workout warrior. He's someone who the training staff is working around the clock to trying to get him back on the court. If there is a way to get him on the court by game 4, game 5, I think that they will. But there's also a possibility that, he has a setback or that it lingers and he never quite gets back to the player that he was for this season. And I mean, I think the Warriors are in trouble. Although, they've got Buddy Hield, so maybe everything's okay.
Yeah, and there's the part two, James. We could talk about Tyrese Haliburton and his little buzzer beater, but of the former Kings who are cooking right now in the postseason, Shavano is lighting the world on fire. 40 minutes in game 1 versus Minnesota, 20-something points. It wasn't as spectacular as his game 7 performance, James, but he's gone 2 straight games now where he hasn't turned the ball over. And for those of us who enjoy poking a little fun at Buddy Hield, that's a rare statistic, and it's really paying off for Golden State right now.
Yeah, I think the problem that I've Buddy Hield is a good dude, and he's a fun-loving guy, and he's a hard worker and all these things. So again, I don't like when we rib like Buddy Hield, it's sort of in fun. And I don't know if anyone else is noticing this, but Steve Kerr and Jimmy Butler are doing the same exact things that we do. Like they are ribbing that dude every single step of the way. They're having a good time with this. Buddy is just one of those guys who makes like 2 or 3 egregious, like really, really obvious mistakes in every game that he plays in. And then on top of that, there's like 8 other ones that you don't really, unless you're watching for it, that you don't really catch. Right. For all the times that Buddy Hield in Sacramento reached out for a rebound that was just him underneath the basket by himself, took his eye off the ball and missed the rebound and let it bounce out of bounds. Like we all remember those plays. For every time that he dribbled it off his foot or dribbled off his leg, the fact that I'm going to credit Jimmy Butler for this. He has Buddy Hield so locked in, like mentally focused. And that is what I think has always kind of been the issue with Buddy. Like there are way too many times where he loses mental focus, and it's just this little tiny thing that happens. And he still has, like, you can go back and watch the tape. He still made a couple of Buddy plays where, 18 seconds on the shot clock and you're up 6. He's hoisting a 3 from 28 feet and you're just throwing your hands up like, what are you doing? But you'll live with it when he's scoring and when he's taking it on, taking on a leadership role when Steph is out of the game. So, man, they would not be in the second round of the playoffs if it wasn't for Buddy Hield, and they would have lost game 1 as well if it wasn't for Buddy Hield, especially with Steph going down. So, yeah, he's been a lot of fun. It's interesting to see that people mention like he's maturing. Like that's really, really interesting because it's not like Buddy's 28 years old or 25 years old or 26. This dude's like 31.
We don't know how old he is.
We don't.
That's the
we
beauty
don't.
of Buddy. We really have no idea.
No, we have no idea. And as the guy who broke that story that he was a year older than he actually was, I don't have any faith in his date of birth at all. So
he's actually older than Jimmy Butler. That like most people don't know that. Like Buddy's actually older than Jimmy Butler.
Oh man,
He's not the annoying little brother. He's the annoying big brother.
I know. I just think it's so funny because we're when you look and he was drafted the year after De'Aaron Fox, and De'Aaron Fox is 27. Actually, he was drafted the year before De'Aaron Fox, but he's 31 and De'Aaron is 27. It's crazy. I mean, Buddy was drafted. We thought he was drafted as a 23-year-old. It's my bad. Buddy's actually 32. He's not 31. He's 5 years older than De'Aaron Fox, and he was drafted a year ahead of De'Aaron Fox.
It doesn't even seem possible.
And this was before COVID. During COVID, they had like 7-year college players. Like, no, this was just regular time. Buddy was Buddy was
I can't believe Buddy has been in our lives that long. The man's 32 years old.
It's so many great jokes too. Like his story is amazing. This is a guy who, like played basketball without shoes on for a good portion of his life in the Bahamas. And, like the fact that he's named after Bud Bundy from Married with Children is like one of the funniest things ever. Like his mom like wanted to call him Bud because Bud Bundy, and then the local drug dealer down the street's name was Bud, so she called him Buddy instead of Bud. Like these stories, the Buddy, like he's like a legend, like one of those guys that like a tall tale, and it's great to see him have success at this point. Just absolutely amazing that he's having this type of success. As a 32-year-old, he's living his best life and developing in the same way that Tyrese Haliburton and Cade Cunningham and Amen Thompson, even though they're all 5 to 10 years younger than him. It's cool to see, though. I love it.
Imagine his mom chose like a different character and was like, "No, I'm going to nickname him Al," and Al Healed, like it does.
Steve.
And his name is great.
Steve Healed.
Steve Healed, like Shavano Steve Healed.
Steve, the next Marcy's husband, right?
Shavano Al Healed over here for 3.
Well, that's the thing. His name is spectacular. That's what like my good friend Sean Cunningham always says. Like, why would you not just go by Shavano? Shavano Rainier? Like, just an awesome name. Like, go out there and be your best Shavano Rainier.
What was Marcy's other husband's name?
Oh, what was it?
Was it Jefferson?
Or yes.
That's good. That's good knowledge. Jefferson.
Was it Jefferson?
Yeah.
And Jefferson is now on. Yeah. Now Jefferson is on. What is the Apple
Jefferson's
show?
The guy from Revenge of the Nerds.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Man. Okay. Thank you, James. You've never seen Revenge of the Nerds?
No.
Oh man,
he's on Shrinking right now. Shrinking on Apple TV, which is absolutely incredible. Jason Segel and I'm trying to think.
I think the show's over.
Oh,
we gotta go. Well, I'll tune in tomorrow. I guess we'll feel this Married with Children conversation tomorrow.
Jefferson Darcy.
That's amazing. It's Wednesday. Denver and Oklahoma City coming up at 6:00 here on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320.
Vamos Knicks take. Let's go.